Stay close to your customers, solve customers' problems that are at the CEO and board level. And if you're not solving a customer problem that's in their top three, you're probably not solving a problem that customers are truly going to spend money on. So stay focused on the top three problems that customers have. And I think you'll have a fruitful career, or at least a fruitful year.
Welcome to the Emblazers Show, where B2B leaders are igniting revenue. I'm your host, Abby Kerr. And on today's episode, we're tackling an important topic. What does good growth look like for enterprise B2B organizations in 2026? And we have the perfect guest to have that discussion with my colleague, Tim Riesterer. Our guest today is Marc Niemiec. Marc Niemiec is the Chief Revenue Officer for SAP's Customer Experience business, where he leads global revenue strategy and growth. Marc brings deep experience building and scaling high-performing sales organizations, most recently serving as CRO at SalesLoft, and before that, spending over 7 years at Salesforce in senior leadership roles across communications, media, and enterprise sales. Earlier in his career, Marc spent nearly a decade at Cisco, leading teams across financial services and collaboration. He's known for connecting strategy to execution and for building teams that consistently deliver results. Let's go to the episode with Tim and Marc right now.
Marc, it's great to have you on the show. Great to see you again. We go back a few years and a long, impressive employment history at some great tech companies and in sales leadership. And this is a show for sales leaders. And first and foremost, I can't wait to talk to you about your new gig and just the role of CRO and how that's evolving in the times we're in. But great to have you here. Good to see you again.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the invitation, and great to see you again as well, Tim.
So I was recently on a virtual summit or conference, and I said during the pandemic, we used the word unprecedented probably too much, but yet none of us had ever been through a pandemic. So maybe it was. But I feel like we're in unprecedentedly unpredictable times now. But we're in the most unpredictable times where your bosses, the CEO and the boards, are asking for predictable revenue despite all this unpredictability. So today I want to kind of take us there because I'm thinking all the revenue leaders we're talking to are kind of in the same seat. So let's talk about growth in a highly unpredictable time and how you make good growth more predictable. What could you give me in the first few minutes here that would set our plate for today?
Yeah, well, I think of that in two ways, or maybe two modalities. One of them is the sort of human element of selling, which is staying close to your customers is always important, no matter what's happening in the environment around you. And that's the human aspect of selling and engaging with customers and helping them solve problems. Then there's the systems and the technology part, and that's what we're here sort of more to talk about. And look, there's been a lot of investments in growth over the years. And I think over, from 2009 to 2022 or so, we saw those unprecedented times, some of them pandemic related, some of them zero interest rate related. And there was a lot of money that flowed into the business of growth. And that created all kinds of companies and capabilities, and companies were spending a lot of money to grow at all costs. And as capital has gotten more expensive and those growth investments have modulated, companies still need to grow their revenue. And that means different things to different companies based on the type of business they're in. For us at SAP, it's about staying close to our customers, like I said, but also making sure that we're engaged and we're selling deals and selling engagements that are valuable to those customers so that we're solving problems that they care about. And we do that in a number of ways. We do that certainly through listening to our customers, but also making sure that when we engage, we're solving problems that they value, that they put a high premium on. And that challenge doesn't change. That is always a challenge for all of us. But nowadays, it's a little harder because we've got to figure out which customers are going to invest in growth and which customers have problems that we can truly solve.
Well, let's talk about just the word growth. When you look back 3 to 5 years and the definition of good growth, and you think about where we are today, is that holding up? Is it breaking down? Where's that definition in your mind today?
Yeah.
And where did it come from?
I think 3 to 5 years ago, growth was about capturing net new revenue, net new logos, net new customers. And that's certainly an aspect of growth in any time. But now I think our growth has shifted a little bit to durability and making sure that we can provide customers the right products and services and capabilities and solve problems that are going to be everlasting or that have more durability. And that's where I think real growth comes from these days. So it's not growth at all costs. You hear folks talk about profitable, efficient growth or modulated growth. I think there's still a lot of growth out there, but it's about making sure that we solve problems that customers value in a continuous way versus just solving today's problem. It's truly being that partner to your customers and solving problems that they care about and making sure that we're positioning the right capabilities that are going to get consumed and adopted in the times that our customers are in right now. And there's a lot of different challenges they're dealing with, supply chain disruptions, human capital disruptions, all kinds of things. And for us, it's about finding the path through some of those signals and helping customers find that opportunity for durable growth.
I like the word durable. It means so much, I think, as the world evolves, even to the point where we're going to price things different and we're going to measure things different. But bookings has always been the North Star. You're a CRO. I mean, aren't you being held accountable for bookings? Is durable growth something that even boards and CEOs are understanding? Talk to me more about how you now balance that new logo thing with what sounded to me like a lot of customer retention expansion.
Yeah. Well, bookings and revenue are two different things. And I think a lot of times sales organizations, especially over the past 15 years, have used bookings as a proxy for revenue. And they are in some ways a proxy for revenue, but they also have certain underlying assumptions that need to be, that have been challenged. And that is the durability of how are customers sticking with us? What do those retention rates look like? Because in the businesses that a lot of us are in, growth is incremental. Revenue collects on top of previously captured revenue. It's not about just a capitalized deal and grabbing that brass ring. It's about sticking with the customer and the customer sticking with us, and those incremental opportunities sticking or growing on top of one another. And so that's a little bit of a different mindset. It's not about just bookings. It's about retaining those bookings and making sure we're continuing to solve customers' most important challenges. And together, that's what drives actual growth. That's what drives revenue growth. It's not just bookings. It is certainly about retention as well.
Well, and that brings up an interesting question, because when I hear the title CRO, and it's been around for a while now, some companies treat it more like glorified CSO, Chief Sales Officer, because there's still a Chief Customer Officer over here. But what I hear you saying is the org fundamentally has to see selling and reselling as a continuous revenue motion. Are orgs adapting to that? Are they still too siloed? What needs to happen, and what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I think, look, whether a company defines a chief revenue officer as a glorified, sales executive or a more holistic revenue executive, I think as an executive, no matter what your responsibility is, our job is to help our companies grow. If my job were purely sales, I would certainly have a lens that oriented to net new revenue capture. But every executive needs to think about the durability of their business. We're usually paid on the company performance overall. And so whether your job is a chief sales officer, customer officer, revenue officer, I think everybody has to be focused on what does durable growth look like. So it's not just about capturing net new deals, although that is very important, helping customers to solve new problems. But it's also about making sure that those customers renew and retain, that we deliver value every day. That alignment between the customer need and the value we deliver is very, very close. And look, we're seeing some shifts in that right now. It's certainly from pricing models that are going to start shifting that we're going to see, but also companies are looking for more profitability in what they do. And so that means they're going to look to consolidate systems in some cases. They're going to look for fewer vendors. They're going to look for partners that can help them make sure their businesses are running efficiently and they're serving customers and anticipating those needs so that they can be that trusted partner of those customers that they work so hard to capture.
When I hear pipeline, I can't help but think of like the top of the funnel. And yet we know that the vast majority of a lot of companies' revenue comes from existing customers sticking around and doing more. In fact, I was recently at a kickoff where the company was, we're going to renew at X rate and we're going to have an attach rate of an upsell of 50%. And by next year, we want it to be 80%. And so you could feel that like the new logo number looks small in comparison to what the expectation was for retention and then expansion. So you can just kind of feel like it's a holistic pipeline that people are managing right now in order to get to growth. Am I seeing this right?
I think for sure you're seeing that right. I think there's always going to be a tension on net new business. Eventually, if you move in the direction that you're describing, which I think every company is, if you move too far in that direction over too long of a period of time, eventually you're going to run out of things to provide to those customers. And so we're always going to have to manage our appetite for the balance between net new and cross-sell upsell. But in the season that we're in today in enterprise software and I think business in general, it's about how do I do more with my existing customers and help make sure I can solve those problems that they have, because I think a lot of companies have spent a lot of money on, a broad set of systems, and integrating and managing those systems is got its own costs. And now customers, since capital is more expensive, are looking for ways to consolidate some of those capabilities down into systems that are going to help them be more profitable, capture those signals, and ensure that they're running their businesses in a healthy way. You see it in some of the pressure for companies to be rule of 40, rule of 50, rule of 60. Those things are happening all over the place. And I think there's a set of factors mainly around the cost of capital that's driving that shift.
So the goal is more predictable growth on both sides. It's not getting any easier on new logos, and as consolidation happens, holding on to our business and expanding it is no easy task. But the reality of it is that we're doing it all in this environment where like AI is on the table. And I have to bring it up and bring it up pretty quickly because the FCC requires me to talk about AI. AI is supposed to help, and it's supposed to make all of us more productive. It's going to give us more signal that we can react to so that we're going after the right customers, we're securing more of our customers, we're keeping and growing them because AI is going to give us all this signal. We're going to be so much smarter and faster. So what are you seeing in reality out there? I mean, great promise. Let's kind of establish what's going on today, and then we'll work our way up to the hype cycle.
I think there's a lot of excitement and anticipation around what AI will do. And I think a lot of the capabilities that we all, kind of touch and see and feel every day feel like magic, right? We touch and feel and see some of these capabilities from some of the large language model providers, and they do things for us that make us feel like we have superpowers, that they're delivering us some magic. And that is really exciting to all of us. I think every company is trying to figure out, well, how do I take that magic and put it in a bottle and make it or give me some business results that are going to give me some advantage? And I think every company is trying to figure that out. We all saw the MIT study from a few months ago, and most of these projects aren't delivering the value that folks anticipated. But over time, I think we will figure out how do we get the value out of these capabilities. One of the things that I think about in this regard is sort of governance and safety. And when I think about what customers are struggling with, they want to unleash these capabilities onto their employees and give them the superpowers to be able to move faster with more precision and better knowledge of their customers and systems and processes. But they lack the governance and the confidence that their employees won't inadvertently put them in a bad position, won't leak information that's going to be proprietary or secretive. And so the analogy I think of in my mind a little bit, in 1965, when Ford put seatbelts in the Mustang, the marketing folks said, we can't do that. That's going to tell our customers that our cars are unsafe. But when in reality, what happened is when that took place, engine technology evolved and a series of innovations came to pass in safety technologies in cars and suspension and braking, all that kind of stuff, which allowed people to use those cars in a much more confident and comfortable way. And I think of the same analogy here. I think companies want to unleash the power of AI, but they lack the confidence around the governance and the systems that are going to make sure that their employees don't put them inadvertently at risk. And I think that's one of the things that's holding folks back. But as this industry evolves, I think we're going to see that concern get managed by some of the capabilities that we're bringing to bear and other vendors are bringing to bear as well.
So where are some of the early wins then? I mean, I get it. That makes a ton of sense. It's a little Wild West and that makes a lot of people nervous. And we all see the reports that, I don't know, somebody will tell you 80 or 90% of these are failing to deliver. Are there any spots you're seeing, like early wins that give us hope that this will be helpful?
Yeah. So in our business, we are primarily an ERP company and we have a CX business as well. But in our business, those AI capabilities helping to run that business, making sure we anticipate what are those supply chain needs? How do I align all the different components of my business in such a way that's going to allow us to anticipate the needs of our customers, our suppliers, and our partners in a way that's going to give us better margin profiles? It's going to help us observe what patterns or what processes might be broken and how AI might recommend shifting or managing or updating or upgrading those processes. Those are the things where we're seeing wins today. And I think that's where customers ultimately need to start to capture that value around AI. Because if we have broken systems in place and we apply AI to them, all that's going to do is help you move faster in the wrong direction. But if you can identify where are the processes in my organization that need to be tightened up, evolved, made more precise, and then apply AI to them, we can start to see the value pool to those companies that are doing that foundational work. So that's how we think of it largely. Those values will pool to things like the customer experience portfolio, but they'll pool after we get our data in shape, after we get our processes in shape, and after our systems are built in such a way that allows us to truly unleash the power of AI on our employees. And that's the phase I think that we're in right now.
You can see where if you're running back office and front office, in some ways, there's opportunities in both cases. And the fact that they might be integrated and linked to create greater value, also to maybe avoid some of those pitfalls you talked about earlier, make a lot of sense. For our revenue leader audience here, and you as a revenue leader, where are you applying it? Are you beginning to apply it, AI, in your process, in your opportunity management, in your account management? What does that look like on the ground right now?
So doing things like analyzing our customers' businesses, helping to research our companies and our customers, to provide more insights to our sellers so they can be present with their customers. And we believe to sell is human, and in order to do that, we need to be present with our customers. And so we're using those AI capabilities to make better and more intelligent account plans, to understand who inside of the account we should be aligning to from a power map perspective. How should we be thinking about the customer's business challenges, and how can we anticipate some of those needs such that we can help them solve those issues? I think about, in our business, we have a big commerce business, and understanding how customers are going through that journey, where those journeys might be abandoned, what we can learn from those abandonments, and then how we can provide customers insights to go and help them figure out how to optimize that process. That's an area where we're seeing some of these capabilities start to bear fruit, where customers are looking for more and more of that type of capability from us. So in that process, we're applying AI, both on the account management side, as I mentioned, but also in some of those processes that our customers rely on for us to help them serve their customers in the most precise and personalized way.
Recently, Gartner put out a number that I thought was really ironic. So I saw a report where they said by 2030, 75% of B2B buyers will prioritize the human interaction over AI. And I'm like, wait, isn't this the same Gartner that just 2 years ago said 75% of buyers want a rep-free experience? So something has happened in the last few years that both have brought the human back to the forefront for business buyers. But I also feel like they're identifying and here's the things and ways you can add value. And to your point, the things that AI could do aren't just to make you more productive. They can also make you better in front of the customer, like the insights that you can bring. And those are the expectations customers have for the humans now, because there's a lot of things they can do with AI that apparently just made them a little too confused and they need some human support. So talk me through that, what's left for the human to do and what will set you apart in front of a customer anymore.
I think of the point you just made around, we're always moving up the value chain, right? And so a lot of the low value things that people had done previously before these capabilities existed is kind of like Excel, right? We used to think of Excel as, hey, help me figure out, how to close the books, or help me figure out what my budget looks like. And now we're using Excel for different capabilities, and we're interrogating data in different ways. And all those accountants and financial professionals that use those capabilities are answering different, more sort of hybrid activity questions. I think the same thing happens in the sales business, where a lot of the low value tasks that can be automated through AI, some of the maybe the refill or resell or some of those things, I don't need a human for that. But when I need a human I need the best possible human to do that. I need somebody to know my business, to be able to anticipate my needs and to understand how my business operates, so they can be that thing we all as salespeople hope to be, is that trusted advisor. And so that is the challenge I think we all have to rise to, is let AI do the things that AI does really well. So you have your time and your energy and your mental horsepower ready and available to do the things customers truly need humans to do. And that in enterprise B2B software is so much about trust building and learning about our customers and their cultures and how we can help them. And so I think it allows us to free ourselves from some of the maybe low value tasks that have historically been part of the selling process into more high value engagements that customers truly value. I definitely see that as a trend that we're going to realize. And I certainly agree with that perspective that Gartner shared.
What if your next big revenue move didn't come from a blog post or a cold LinkedIn scroll, but from a real conversation with leaders who've been there?
As the world of sales is constantly evolving and constantly changing, I think it's even more critical to get together with people to understand how are they helping to solve some of the problems that our buyers have today.
Meet Emblaze, a community of sharp B2B minds, CROs, CSOs, rising stars, sharing what's actually working in sales, enablement, and customer growth.
We always find a lot of value in the partnerships that we're able to form with some of the other great organizations that are part of the team here. And personally, I love the opportunity to connect with my peer group outside at other organizations and learn from them and try to figure out if there's things that they're doing that we can pull into our organization and benefit from.
Join a monthly forum, dig into science-backed strategy, and get insight you won't find in your feed. Start your Emblaze journey today at emblazegrowth.com.
One thing that's really important to make AI do the job well is good data. There's a ton of signal that can be gathered, right? And the question is the signal predictive and helpful, or is it noisy and a distraction? Talk to me about the role of data as a CRO and how you plan to leverage that to lead your team going forward.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think at some point or in history, data was an IT problem, and eventually, we got our own sort of data businesses and a chief data officer, and we thought of data as a thing that somebody else managed. And as AI becomes more prevalent and our leaders become more comfortable with using AI, data has become a business problem. It is the thing that our business leaders need to think about. Do they have the right data in the right format, and do they have the right access to it such that they can capture all the data that gives them the chance to find the signal? It's not about more data and more information necessarily, but it's about the right information. So I need as much data as I can get, and then I need the right AI systems to interrogate that data to produce the insight that my seller, that my customer service manager, that my executive needs to be able to make the right decision. And that becomes a business problem. And I think that is one of the major shifts that AI has driven, is data is now a business problem where it used to be probably an IT challenge more so than anything.
And maybe more specifically in the CRO chair, how do you see that? Like, there's data that will help your commercial team members be better in front of the customer, but then there's data you need to, again, get back to this predictability in a volatile, unpredictable world. So how do you see that working and guiding a CRO and managing this unpredictable time?
Yeah. So we segment our data in all kinds of different ways, and we look for those signals, like you said. And in the commercial segment, we're looking for different signals than we're looking for in the enterprise segment, as an example. But what we're ultimately looking for is, how are our customers adopting our capabilities? How are our sellers engaging with our customers? What are the most high value engagements they can deploy that are going to convert at the right rates? Because as we talked earlier, I now need to think about profitable growth. So I need to make sure that I am running an efficient sales organization. I need to make sure I have the right quota coverage. I need to make sure I have the right product support inside of my organization, such that I can run the most profitable and efficient sales organization versus just capturing growth at all costs. So data has become the currency that allows a CRO to truly understand their business. And then when they can interrogate that data the right way, they can make sure they're running an organization that's hitting the profitability and growth metrics that are critical to a business these days.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of activities. Those activities can throw off a ton of potential signal, but which ones stick? Which ones you can connect the dots from activity to outcome become super important, or you're just going to, like you said earlier, make everybody go a little bit faster and not necessarily make any progress. So let's talk about being a CRO in this volatile world, like execution, not just strategy. So we talked a lot about sort of strategy, but if I think about how you need to respond in a market that seems to be daily changing, whether it's global, geopolitical, global economics, socioeconomics, just the market and customer trends and decision-making, like, what's the most important attributes of a CRO and for a CRO to manage in these times?
Yeah. I had a mentor of mine years ago who would talk about, when he would think about hiring, he would hire best athletes. And we used to think of sales leaders and CROs and customer success leaders as, as sort of depth or domain experts on the thing that they know best. And now I think we think more of a T-shaped leader in the CRO role, where they're certainly deep on an aspect, usually sales, as part of that responsibility. But you need to be conversant across the business in all of the things that that a business needs to run. So I need to understand operations. I need to understand technology. I need to understand marketing. I need to understand, investor relations, such that I can organize and optimize my business in a way that's going to deliver us the best results. And if I think about just that depth of expertise in one part of the discipline, I miss all of the other opportunities to be that true revenue partner to our CEO or to our board. So I think that is the thing that is changing, is that this role is becoming more essential. And as such, you need a T-shaped leader that's going to understand both the depth of the sales of the revenue business, but also the breadth of what it means to be a company executive in a very sort of volatile time that we're in right now.
I like that. And I can picture that you're managing up and managing down in a way. And that gets me maybe back to the data discussion, leading and lagging indicators. Like what are you managing to when you think about the audiences that you're managing? If I'm a CRO, what's your dashboard look like? What matters most, and how are you keeping tabs on that?
Yeah. So, we certainly look at a lot of the things that are very traditional in terms of top of funnel and pipeline and all those things. But the way we look at that information has changed. We don't just look at aggregate data in that sense. We look at by sub-solution or product or by market or segment. How are the different, each part of our business performing? And so now we look at, conversion rates in a much more discrete way. We look at product conversion rates. We look at product utilization rates, because that's going to tell us what the long-term durability of that product or that customer, that engagement is. So that telemetry around how the product is used is much more important to the CRO than it probably was previously. That may have been something the product team maybe spent more time with, and they still do. But in order for me to understand the durability of my business, I need to understand how customers are consuming existing and new features, and need to have that active conversation with product around what are the things that we should be developing such that we can make our products and capabilities better adopted and deliver more value to our customers. And that is a true partnership between product and the revenue leader that I think is evolving, because it's no longer enough just to go out and sell. We need to make sure we sell the right thing in the right way that's going to get adopted and going to bring value to customers. And so I think looking at product utilization data, telemetry, that kind of information is probably a new aspect of this job that has been in the domain of the product expert or the product leader. And it's now coming into the domain of the CRO as well.
Yeah, even when I think of, if I cast the CRO net or umbrella over the CS type teams or account management, as well as business development, AEs, so new logo stuff, retention and expansion stuff, and then start to think about how pricing may move from what was already a scary monthly or annual contract to almost day-by-day consumption management. How are you gearing up for that? It's coming, right?
It's coming. I've been doing a lot of reading and thinking on this topic for years, but there's 4 distinct pricing models in enterprise software. They each last about 20 years, and they all overlap with each other a little bit. And it started with perpetual licensing, and that was a capital expenditure. I had something, you wanted it, and it was objective. You bought it and you owned it, and you owned the risk for it. And then comes subscription, and that started in the 98, 99 timeframe, and that's gone for the past 20 years or so. And now, or maybe halfway through that cycle, we started to see customers want more close alignment with value. And they said, hey, it's not enough for me just to know that I have access to that license or capability. I want to only pay for what I use. And we saw the utility model come into place in the 2010, 11 timeframe. And that's still got a long way to run. But the next pricing model that we're going to see, we're already starting to see it emerge, is the outcome-based model. What's unique about that model is it's the only of the 4 models that is not completely objective at this point. And so we're going to need, as an industry, to figure out how do we make these outcomes to be more objective. Because if they're subjective, it becomes really hard to price both on the customer side and on the vendor side. What are my costs and what are my prices, and how do I think about that coming together? And so defining what those outcomes are and how we're going to charge for them and how customers want to pay for them, I think that's the next frontier that we're all starting to think a little bit about. And that is certainly something that I think we'll see for the next 20 years. As if you look at history, these things have all gone for about that time frame. So as history with our guide, I think we're in for an interesting next few years on this topic.
I think you're right. And I think that, like, what is an outcome and whose outcome? Is it the project team outcomes, like they had some goals, or is it that department's outcomes, or is it the company outcomes? And the answer is probably yes. And you're going to have to be able to connect those dots, it feels like. So are there any early indicators of like what that could look like, what that might feel like, just so I can get my head around it?
The first thing we all will need to agree on is an objective measure of outcome. And that's going to probably start in a way or in a place that feels a little rudimentary, because we're going to have to figure out what is this thing that we can all agree on as an outcome. And as we all get comfortable with that, we're going to get further into more nuanced outcomes, and we're going to get more comfortable there. But that's at a sort of meta macro level for the industry. But I think that's the trajectory that we're going to go along over the next several years. And then we're going to see people pay for value. They're going to pay for the value they realize. I saw that case get adjudicated by an agent, and it didn't require a human to be involved. And for that, I want to pay for that capability or for that outcome. Rather than paying for access to that, I want to pay for what that thing actually does. And I think that's the journey that we're gonna go on. And it's going to be interesting to see how we all agree on what those objective outcomes are that we can start with.
Yeah, I think we're going from access right past consumption to outcomes. And consumption will have a moment, but it's going to be brief. So, Mark, always great to see you. All great stuff. Like this is visionary stuff for CROs and revenue leaders who are listening to this broadcast. Any last words you have for them for the rest of this year?
Stay close to your customers. Solve customers' problems that are at the CEO and board level. And if you're not solving a customer problem that's in their top 3, you're probably not solving a problem that customers are truly going to spend money on. So stay focused on the top 3 problems that customers have, and I think you'll have a fruitful career, or at least a fruitful year.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Pleasure seeing you again. SAP and the customer experience group has a great new leader in you. So I expect to hear more of that story in the year to come.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim.
Thanks for watching another great episode of the Emblazers Show, and thank you to our guest, Mark Niemiec. Check out what Emblaze membership is all about at corporatevisions.com/community. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Emblazers Show on your favorite podcast app. We'll see you next time.